Welcome to the content panel. I'm really excited to discuss this topic here with you because the industry continues to race toward commercial excellence and driving more meaningful, impactful customer engagement. And in that context, content plays a dominant role as the key factor for this type of hyper-personalization. So as a result, especially for the leaders who've been able to drive advanced content supply chain operation at scale, this trend that started a few years ago of having content coming faster at higher volume and more variety continues to accelerate. So in this environment, the question is, how does content develop in the future? And we cannot have discussion about content future and the content supply chain in our industry without addressing generative AI. To discuss these topics, I'm very excited to welcome our panel, Libby Driscoll, Senior VP, Global Commercial Service at Eli Lilly, Dr. Michael Kerr, he's the Global Head of Human Pharma Services at Boehringer Ingelheim, and Michael Shorp, Head of Knowledge Management, AI, Development Biologicals, also at Boehringer Ingelheim. Welcome, my esteemed panel. This is a topic that really requires expertise and leadership in this area because it is at the cutting edge. So I would like to start off the panel with a question for Libby. And Libby, as a leader of advanced content supply chain capabilities, what journey has Eli Lilly been on with regards to content? What's on the horizon as your next level of progress? And just to make the question even a little bit more complex for you, has the rise of generative AI changed the path of your journey?
All great questions, Mark, and thanks for having us here this morning. So I think when you say content supply chain, people's maybe first thought goes towards efficiencies, right? I think there's probably a general feeling that we create a lot of stuff in pharma, but the way that we try to think about it is not just about efficiency, but really about how do we be more effective with our content. And that's really been our primary focus and principle as we've gone on this journey, is how do we deliver more of what really matters to our customers and do that really timely. And so that's what's been really exciting is we've made progress towards modular content and how do we turn that content into data so that we can measure the content effectiveness, tag it, measure it, and see how it's performing in the marketplace. And then that's informing us to determine, okay, do we need to continue with that message or do we potentially need to change up that message? And so now we've got more data than we've ever had to help us in that decision making and help us better serve our customers. I think about what's next. All of us, have a lot of resources that we invest in MLR review of our content. And while we've certainly made improvements and efficiencies there, I think that's a big focus area for us moving forward. And how do we use technology to rethink our review and approval of content? But super excited about kind of the promise of AI. There's still a lot, generative AI, there's still a lot for us to learn and figure out. But I think this is going to be an accelerator for us as we think about how we develop content to get the right content to the right customers at the right time through the right channels.
All right, awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Michael Shorp, BI you shared with us has quickly made generative AI a major priority for your enterprise, right? So you guys jumped in it with both feet first. If you put your eye on the commercial side of the business, because your scope is larger than just that, but if you just look at the commercial side for purpose here, what are some of the observations that you've made as an early practitioner of leverage generative AI?
So I've been working with generative AI at BI and actually it was quite some journey. We've been focusing on, especially on the commercial side of the business. And actually, I've noticed there are a few key things that have shaped our approach into this technology. First off, it's super important to be realistic about what Gen AI can do and can't do. It has a ton of potential for transforming content creation and personalization, but it's not a magic solution, right? So we need to keep refining it and make sure that there's always, at least in my opinion, a human oversight at the moment, right? And if we've been also working hard to figure out where Gen AI can have actually the biggest impact. And so far, we found it to be really effective in a few areas. So for example, it's great in digging into large documents for insights. So generative AI can sift through huge amounts of text and basically pull out valuable insights and patterns that not be obvious to us. And by understanding the context, AI can give us more, let's say, relevant and actionable information, which helps us then make, at the end, better decisions and develop better strategies. At least this is what we encountered so far. Another area where generative AI really shines is checking documents for compliance, right? We had this in the MLR review already, yeah? So we can use it to automate the process of making sure that documents follow industry regulations or our own guidelines. So by training the AI models on the rules and on the policies, the system can quickly spot potential issues and flag them for review, right? Again, from human oversight, right? So this saves time, right? And of course, reduces the risk of non-compliance. And generative AI is also really, really helpful when it comes to summarizing large amounts of text. Okay, this is not a surprise, but this is really something where it's really, really good. So it can, for example, create really concise summaries of really large text corpora and make it easier for us to quickly understand the main points and the ideas. And this is especially helpful in our industry, in the pharmaceutical industry, where we often need to review tons of, at least in my area, research papers, clinical trials, regulatory documents, what have you, right? And lastly, if I, this is where we actually now in our team are really working heavily on. Gen AI can improve knowledge retrieval and understanding. But by digesting documents into large language models, it is capable to understand the content and this is new, the context, yeah, which ultimately leads to more accurate and relevant knowledge to solve my problem at the end, right? So this is what we can do basically is we can ask very complex questions and get pretty precise answers when the information is, for example, scattered across multiple documents, or even when we combine it with a smart search engine, yeah, even if it's scattered over different sources. So I would say the experience with Gen AI at BI has been, well, I would say a learning process, and we are still refining our approaches as we explore actually the new application, the new use cases. But the point is, and this I want to make this very clear, by setting realistic expectations, finding the right areas to apply Gen AI, and keeping close eye on ethical, for example, or regulatory questions. So I believe when we all do this, right, this technology can really play a big role, right, in, for example, driving commercial successes and at the end, improving then the customer engagement.
Fantastic. Very exciting. Michael Kerr, you're on the receiving end of this within Boehringer. And, you know, we know you've been driving some dramatic transformation of your global content operations in a very accelerated timeline. And you probably have one of the most advanced content supply chains in the industry today. Can you summarize a little bit on what foundation you operate today that Gen AI will impact, and what opportunities do you see to tear everything down that you already built and start over with Gen AI? Now, just being a little provocative here, but please do give us some background.
Yeah, that's indeed a little provocative. Thank you, Mark, for this question. But before answering this, I want to say I'm excited for being here again. I'm even more excited that one of my dear colleagues has joined me on this panel. We actually started working with Michael and his team to look into some of these topics that are probably not as obvious as this large language processing stuff, right? So it's really getting exciting. But before I'm getting to your question, Mark, let me also say thank you for your compliment. I know you guys have a very good overview over many peers. You guys are running a distinct consulting company also that is doing active benchmarking on this topic, yeah? And hearing from you that probably BI is running one of the more sophisticated content supply chains obviously means something. So thank you for that. But it's actually true. BI was on a truly transformative journey throughout the last few years since the establishment of Human Pharma Services, which was repositioned and renamed earlier this year from go-to-market services. This is how we initially were called, which tells you already that we have broadened our scope, that we have broadened our ambition, and we have really put a stick in the ground here. But let's talk about the digital content factory that together with my team I have built. You called it an accelerated timeline. It actually took us 2.5 years to get this to a true global scale operation. We started end of 2019, and since a good strong year, we are at true global scale, which is something I'm very proud of, obviously. Ever since, we are maturing and professionalizing our operations, and I can say that we have reached very competitive speed, quality, and lowest cost possible currently. So the status today, coming to your question more specifically, we are actually supporting approximately 100 countries worldwide. So literally all the countries BI is operating in with fully harmonized, fully centralized digital production activities. And what does that mean? We are actually running, no surprises, with you guys, an offshore digital factory producing literally all emails, all e-details, all websites, and all banners that our business in all the markets need to go to market effectively. So this is really large, and this is something that we will also be able to leverage more moving forward, also cross-functionally. Talking about GPT technology, I would say there's a huge disruption ahead of us, and Michael Schorb obviously talked about this. Libby talked about this already. What gives me confidence here is that BI really used the time to do their homework. So we now have a global environment, a global infrastructure that we can leverage, that we can use in different contexts. So even if there's disruption coming, we will be agile enough to adapt, to accommodate, but to use what we have built, because this in itself was a journey to bring it to the state we are in today. And I really believe this will give us a good competitive edge moving forward. Let me talk about content management a little bit more specifically. I really believe such a global environment that can keep some brand consistency, that can keep some company consistency from global to region to countries. I believe an infrastructure like that is needed for all big pharma organizations moving forwards. Specifically as our customer expectations are rising. Libby talked about this also, yeah, more custom content, quicker to the market, at higher quality, at better relevance, and so on. You need to have an environment that is able to deliver this, yeah, without letting all the markets do whatever they want, because at some point in time, you need to have global consistency. So from global to region to markets, you don't want to have your key claims, your core messages completely diluted. Yeah. So you need to have an environment that is agile, that is responsive, but at the same time is able to carry these core messages from end to end. And with this, obviously, there comes a huge demand for keeping the metadata in place. Your tags need to travel together with the content through the end-to-end journey. Then you need to measure it, you need to feed it back. So a lot of demanding tasks where such a global infrastructure certainly can help. Talking about responsiveness and agility, we earlier this year took also decision to do an upstream integration, which is something I'm super excited about. So next to the digital production factory, we are implementing a creative factory also, which will make this entire content journey completely seamless end to end. And this is not to compete with the AORs of the world also on. Yeah, we are not a top-notch creative agency. Yeah, and this is nothing we want to be, but whatever is there, whatever is invented, we can take it and we can run with it. Yeah, from corporate to regions to markets, and we can do this in a very, very quick way, in a very convenient way also for all the markets. So that's an exciting evolution, and we are in full scale up as we speak. Again, Libby talked about it. The next big thing, of course, is modular content, yeah, because the sheer amount of individualized content you cannot recreate over and over again. So you need to modularize it. And to really get to a personalized go-to-market approach, you need to have a methodology that is able to give you that personalization without creating it over and over and again. And I really believe the answer to this is this modular content approach. And what I believe what will happen, also talking about my production factory, I believe this will dramatically change the current operating model we have built, because I refer to this as a content toolbox. What we will see is a lot of upstream investment in creating all these content modules that are channel agnostic. Then you set up all these templates that are channel specific. You ideally put together the machine readable business rules, and all of this will be pre-approved. It will pre-configured, pre-coded. Yeah. So when you think through it, production in the end will probably not even be needed anymore, because it's all done in these content toolboxes, which will then enable you to go to market very, very quickly. So, and I know this is almost about cannibalizing myself, but
yeah, will you have more time off, Michael? More vacation days?
Yeah, absolutely, exactly. But I'm a true believer of thinking through this, even if it hurts your current operating model, which you are proud of, yeah? But if you don't do this, rest assured someone else will disrupt you, someone else will cannibalize you, yeah? Because the competition out there doesn't sleep. So now let me close out. I know I spoke a lot, but let me close out on quickly thinking through the 4 or 5 key phases of the content value chain. So let's start talking about the planning. I really believe the smart technology will be able to provide you next best content. Yeah, they will be able to feed back which content performed how well in which markets, and with this triggers a very rapid learning journey, and it will tell you which content to reinforce, which content to expire, and probably where you also have content gaps, so that you can continuously evolve on your content. Let's talk about development. Already today, there's a lot of auto-generated content out there, right? And even if it's not genuinely new, because there is no ideation as such, yeah, it's a composition of existing stuff. But the technology is so smart in the meantime that it can do this in a way that the consumer is still surprised and perceives it as new. Yeah, and I think as perception is reality, this will change the perception of the quality of the content that is coming our customers' way. Approval would require a session in itself, but the approval of content that will be mostly going on autopilot, I would say, with a final check to accommodate the legal requirement. But the checking as such, I expect that this will be highly, highly automated and removes this process step being a bottleneck, which it is today. Yeah? The one thing that is closest to my heart, of course, production and sharing. I talked about this, the toolboxes, maybe my whole business model is going to go away, which is fine. So let's get ready for this change early enough. But even before we have content modularized content, I see a more immediate potential disruption. That's also something that I'm debating with my colleague Michael currently. As we are running high-scale digital factory, we have fully standardized inputs in this factory. Otherwise, we cannot operate at scale, right? And the output is also highly standardized, because otherwise we cannot deploy the content through our systems. But what does it mean when you have technology that can generate code? You can train the machine to generate you the code that is necessary to deploy your stuff in your infrastructure, right? So again, the digital factory is at high risk, if you ask me.
Very good. So,
Mark,
Libby, go.
Yeah, I was going to say it was so good to listen to you there, because like the big aha is we're separating now kind of the content creation, that original strategy and creation.
Oh, Libby froze. We'll get to that point when she comes back. So we learned a lot about the foundation, and oh, Libby, there you are. So we lost you. Go ahead.
Yeah, I said you just kind of turn a light bulb on in my head to think about how we're starting to really separate the content creation from the content production. And that those are maybe two distinct kind of skill sets or operating models. And then with that, you need a big mindset shift of marketers too, that we got to maybe move away from thinking about an individual tactic and kind of level up to thinking about what's the overall content plan that we need, and the content effectiveness. So there's both a mindset shift for our teammates, as well as kind of how we actually get the work done.
Yeah, very much. So by the way, Libby, I appreciate this. Do please comment on each other's comments. I direct my question to one person, but if you feel that you can add something, please do so. And I like the idea of you saying not thinking about tactics anymore per se, right, at a marketer level, but thinking about what elements or modules of communication I want to bring across to my customers to move and change behavior, and then set it up that way. So, Libby, now that we are learning that obviously a foundation is, even a traditional foundation, is very necessary to drive dramatic change after that. When you think about the disruption that generative AI can bring, and you think about scaling that, what are some of the obvious challenges or not so obvious challenges that you recommend the audience will have to think about as they embark on this journey?
Yeah. Well, I guess you could think about them as challenges or maybe adoption opportunities, if we kind of turn that upside down. Well, I mean, our customers need to know that that we're providing trustworthy, credible, accurate information. So I think we've got to be medically accurate with our content. Michael, you mentioned earlier that maybe the machines can help us do that better sometimes, because they can sift through so much data. And so how do we leverage generative AI to help us be like very medically accurate? How do we train them so that we can be regulatory compliant? I don't think our customers say, oh, I want our content to be regulatory compliant, but they do want it to make sure it's not misleading or biased or over-promising. And so we'll have to work with this new technology to ensure that we have that high quality of medical accuracy, of regulatory compliance. I think there's some interesting questions too about transparency. Do we share that this content was created from generative AI, or this image was created from generative AI? What is going to be the disclosures as we get into using this new technology? And then how does that generative AI continue to learn? So what kind of environment are you setting up to be able that it learns and gets even better and better? We have a little bit of a limitation with things like ChatGPT that we're not going to put our confidential information just out there in the ether. So you're going to have to create your own kind of internal infrastructure and learning environments. But then how do you make sure that it's a continuous learning environment for that AI, that you are bringing in that external lens, as well as training it on many of your own materials and claims and quality standards that you have. So I think this is such a fascinating space, as we have to think through all these different issues around accuracy, bias, transparency, kind of the learning loop. And so having good frameworks and having good governance, I think someone mentioned before, to make sure that we're setting up these programs correctly from the beginning and setting us up for success, I think will be really important.
Wow, a lot of things to think through. And as you say, setting up the right frameworks, and governance sometimes not the most interesting topic or exciting, but I think it'll be very, very critical in this area. Thanks for sharing that, Libby.
May I quickly build on this, because what Libby just said triggered a thought. I'm jumping on your statement of let's make sure that we are getting this right immediately with the right governance and so on. I believe there are so many moving parts still. There's so much that we don't know. And I even think to remember a statement of my colleague Michael, who said that with the newest GPT version, we sometimes don't even know how the result was created. Yeah. So how can we get it right the first time? Yeah. So there's so much to learn. I believe that we will need to accommodate much more into this agile world of processing and agile work of thinking. And the more unknown it is, the fresher it is, we need to be comfortable with iterating often on high frequency. Yeah? And this whole agile methodology might be very helpful concept, but also this is not easy to implement at larger scale, obviously.
Oh, excellent point. So you addressed Michael Schropp, so I want to bring a question also in that direction. As you said, you're one of the few people in the industry who've actually launched Gen AI applications, not just as experiments, but in full production. So you were so kind to share actually a case study here, your experience from doing that. So could you describe that project for us and tell us what you've got out of it?
Yeah, sure. And as I said already, it's been quite a journey. It's quite intense times, right? And just to follow up on what Michael and Libby said, so we need to learn first, right? So nobody knows, even Microsoft and OpenAI, I guess, don't know what this can do reliably and why not. There was this wonderful paper from Microsoft, 150 pages long, and they had all this stuff what GPT-4 is actually capable of. And they concluded basically with, well, this is all great, but we have no clue why. So why this works. So that was very interesting, that even the experts really don't get how this neural network is actually working. So having that said, so I can share you some insights on how what we at BI approach this AI implementation and actually the lessons we learned along the way. So basically over the last 3 years, we've been working really hard to clean up our information and knowledge, okay? A couple of years ago, we saw the potential and actually the limitations of, in these days, it was GPT-3, but actually we decided to prep ourselves these days already to adapt our knowledge management solution that I'm running to work around the limitations of the GPT technology, okay? So for example, with large language models and GPT technology, you can't have records retention, okay? What a large language model knows, it knows, right? And if you want to wipe it out of the large language model, you need to retrain it, right? Access permission rules, right? Large language models, right? If something is in, you get it out. So permission rules are not possible with large language models. And dealing with hallucinations, for example, and outdated information, these are two other aspects which need to be covered where we are in the pharmaceutical industry, right? So what we basically did, we built a so-called semantic layer with, for example, BI vocabularies, and connected certain repositories, yeah, with full control over permissions. That is the important piece, okay? So, and this groundwork, right, allowed us to put a large language model basically on top of our knowledge base, okay? So we worked actually very closely with Microsoft, as compliance checks are very critical, right? And things need to be safe, yeah, before you can do anything, you know? So when we then basically relaunched our knowledge management application, actually in April this year, and we used the safe Microsoft Azure environment. So we're not working with OpenAI directly, we're working with Microsoft Azure. We basically treated the whole GPT thing like a new product launch within BI, okay? So complete with a marketing campaign, yeah, with customer target analysis, addressed concerns, yeah, that could slow down the adoption at BI, right? Like, for example, what we mentioned, like ethical issues, right? So security concerns, or I mean, you know that just the impression, right, that is just yet another tool, right? So we offer courses on how to use large language models, but always, and that is the key, with our BI documents, okay? And when then GPT-4 became available, well, that was really giving another boost, right? Because the quality of the results were so much better, right, that actually people couldn't stop talking about this, okay? So what happened, yeah, is that people started playing with it, and of course, we encouraged that big time, right, with this marketing campaign, and do it and play with it. And by this way, actually, we built a community of over 1,000 users, right, across BI globally, where people shared their experiences and offered tips, okay? And suddenly, a lot of people uncovered a completely new field of skills, right, to differentiate from their colleagues. So they have gotten very skilled, right, in a very short time. And this, guys, this was the breakthrough moment. So suddenly we had basically so many use cases, right? Because people wanted to work with it, yeah, that we actually couldn't handle them all, because this led, and I can tell you, to tedious discussions about financing, staffing, prioritization, and these kind of things, okay? But the good news is that we have today rolled out AI-fueled application with approximately 17,000 unique users, 1,500 daily users in 70 countries and 180 departments. So this is, we're operating at scale, right? In the blink of an eye, but that was basically because people wanted to use it, okay? So basically the ingredients of our success, right, started 3 years ago, right? So the groundwork that we combined basically with a strategic decision of having the LLM product with direct access to BI knowledge, right? And yeah, I have to admit, a well-executed comms campaign, yeah, to promote the product, right? This is what is necessary. And now we are actually at the stage where we're reflecting on the lessons learned, right? And this might be of most interest, right? So, and we're discussing at the moment the challenges that we still face. The one challenge is that people don't understand that GPT is a language model and not a knowledge model, okay? So some think there is some kind of a, I don't know, hidden wizard behind that do some magic, right? And but the problem is that they don't grasp the nature of the large language models. And in this way, for example, hallucinations become a really big issue when people play with it without using now BI documents as a basis, right, as a trusted source. So we learned that people need to understand the technology's nature, right, and the limitations. And in that point, education is absolutely crucial and critical, right? And another thing that we actually underestimated was how hard it can be for executive management to grasp the technology's massive potential. The thing of it is, in the recent years, they have been bombarded, yeah, with high-flying promises about AI and what we can do with it, and this is all magic, right? It will do everything for you. And this actually was leading to at least significant disappointments when these promises really fell short, right? And good managers, right, become suspicious of the next big promise, right? And what we do basically is, or what we think about that in future, we will focus on solving problems for executive managers, right? And building the first LLM applications around their needs, basically, right? They need, and this is human, right? They need to experience the difference themselves, and then convinced to invest in it at the end, right?
Yeah.
Another lesson that we learned is that despite of our efforts to streamline and harmonize unstructured content, we did not pay enough attention to it. It's really, really important to have structured content. And you guys in your field, you have that, right? But I'm a development guy, right? Development guys are scientists, right? So they have a lot of ideas how to do certain things, right? So there's a lot of unstructured content, you know? And even though the technologies like GPT-4 are incredibly powerful, they still suffer from the garbage in, garbage out problem, right? So, and now as this technology is so unbelievably powerful, some people think that taking care of meaningful information and adhering, for example, to the FAIR principles for unstructured content isn't necessary anymore because, well, the bot will handle it, right? But however, this leads to, and this is actually really something that we see, to a disappointment, you know, when the output doesn't meet the expectations. And the big misunderstanding is that this is not a lack of technology capabilities. It's a garbage in, garbage out issue, okay? So in terms of expectation management, stakeholder management, and communication about what is necessary to get the best results, we will improve in the future.
Fantastic. So, you know, you brought us full circle back to the beginning. ChatGPT or these generative AI technologies do not alleviate the need for building a strong foundation. The stronger the foundation is, the better this will actually work. The other point that you made is around people discovering new skill sets leveraging this technology, which leads me to a question I want to bring for Michael. How do you see your role evolving and the role of your colleagues when managing aspects of commercial operations with this technology?
So that's a very relevant question, obviously, and I made some bold statements earlier already around how obsolete the digital content factory might become, and this is not to scare people or so, but I learned one lesson early in my career. Somebody was telling me, stay up to date and stay relevant, and this is really very true, yeah, because you cannot hold it back. It will happen. And if you are not relevant anymore, you will be gone. So again, let's adapt. What I believe, what is happening, tech will merge all these content steps that are very much isolated today into a more integrated, more holistic solution where data and content and everything is flowing more freely. Yeah, so there will be a convergence across the entire content value chain happening. And in sync with this, I really believe that a lot of things that we are manually processing still today will be taken over by tech. And the more harmonized, the more standardized these steps are, which is at the very nature of high scale operations, the way we have established it, the more you are at risk, obviously. Yeah. So this will happen if we like it or not. What does it mean for us? I love the GIGO statement and the way Michael was telling this, garbage in, garbage out will stay with us almost no matter how smart this technology might become. Yeah, if you don't feed the beast properly, nothing reasonable will come out of it. So this will be a huge focus. So we will have teams of experts who know how to entertain such technology, that it produces the outcomes that we need to have in terms of quality, in terms of relevance, in terms of approvability. So this is something that And most likely will not be the exact same profiles. Skill sets will need to change. But less manual processing will need more focus on how you input into the system. That's probably the biggest change that we will see. And the next thing I see is that because of this very frequent learning circles that we are going to be able to see, that we move into this agile kind of way of working, as I mentioned already.
Yeah, thank you. By the way, I've been weaving in some of the audience questions into our discussion here. And along those lines, one question is also, okay, if everybody has access to ChatGPT 3, 4 in the next generations, how do you actually get a competitive advantage in your organization? If everybody can tap into the same thing, maybe can address this to Libby first. And we have another 5 minutes left in this panel, but let's start with that question. Go ahead, Libby, please.
Good question. I mean, maybe I go back to something that Michael was saying before, is like, there's a huge learning curve here. Not everything is going to work right away. And so I think we got to think about this more like on the R&D side, right? There's going to be a lot of phase 1 kind of projects, but not everything's going to make it through to phase 2 or phase 3. That's probably not the kind of operating model we've had on the commercial side. Like sometimes we have less tolerance for failure or learning. And so we've got to kind of bring that R&D mindset, I think, over as we kind of get into exploring all this new technology. And so the companies that can have that learning mindset, right, and continuous learning mindset, Michael Kerr said this, agile ways of working, right? You fail fast and learn from that and kind of move on to the next thing. I think those are the companies that are going to really be able to use this as a competitive advantage if they're willing to learn, they're willing to fail, they're willing to stay at it, because it's going to take us a while to really figure this all out.
And I totally agree with that. And actually, the companies that wait until regulatory agencies or these people start writing guidelines in 3 or 4 or 8 years from now, right? These companies will fail, because then they did not learn what others learned. So just having access to a technology, let's say a car, doesn't mean that you can drive the car, right? You have to get experience. You have to learn how this works. And what you said, Libby, what is working, what not, right? And we have to do this now, right? We have the basis, the foundation, but now the race starts, right? As always in the pharmaceutical industry.
Let me.
I'd love to.
Yeah, Libby, please.
No, please.
No, you go.
Libby, go.
I was just going to say, I'd love to hear more, because it sounds like you've, instead of doing this to your employees, you've really created this buzz, and then pulling it, them wanting to use it, and then uncovering actually it can help them be even better and more effective with the work. So I think that's also a little bit of the secret sauce. I'd like to understand how you accomplish that, because some people are very scared and concerned about AI, but I think it can also make us even better for our customers and the patients that we're serving. So how do we maybe switch that mindset too?
Yeah.
I would like to add one more thought to this competitive advantage discussion, because I find this compelling. As a highly regulated industry, pharma is doing the same in each pharma company. Yeah? It's the same development process. It's the same go-to markets. It's the same field force. It's the same technology. It's the same data. It's so similar, and still the outcomes are hugely different. Yeah, so the real source of competitive advantage seems to be something else. And I really believe that the way you are able to use and the way you will be able to leverage this technology will become a capability in itself, and with this will become a source of competitive advantage in its own right. This is what will happen, I believe.
Fantastic. It's a great way to conclude our panel. I could talk for a whole other hour, and I predict that we will do that actually in this forum and expand on our experience. Again, I want to thank the panel. I also have to let you unfortunately know, once AI takes over and rules over humanity, this panel will put us, four of us, right in their crosshairs. So be prepared for that. I look very much forward to continuing this dialogue. And again, thank you for this panel. This has been great. And this is definitely a topic relevant in the near and far future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
You're welcome.
Bye.